As knowledgeable as you'll hear ever when it comes to a plethora of various sports, Chuck Cooperstein, voice of the Dallas Mavericks, as well with us on 365 Sports. I think, Chuck, you'd mentioned you were going to a press conference with Nico Harrison, with Mavericks executive. Anything from that? What was maybe the main theme?
That obviously this year wasn't good enough, and that everybody has to look in the mirror. You know that and he said that we're here, but that we're not going to be here next year. So, you know, again, it was very broad based, very few specifics, you know, questions about Kyrie, but, you know, again, none that he would answer, and understandably so. I mean, look, you know, there's no reason to put yourself in any kind of corner until the actual moment of truth comes. And there's a lot of time, unfortunately, but there's a lot of time between now and June 30th.
In your gut, do you feel Kyrie is back and then they mold the rest of the roster once they get that decision made?
Could not begin to tell you. I wish I could. I mean, I think, and it's my opinion, that he likes it here. Mm-hmm. I think he adores Jason Kidd. I mean, Jason Kidd was his idol growing up in New Jersey. He has a great relationship with Nico Harrison going back to his time with Nike. And I think he enjoyed, and this, again, and this is my opinion, and you know, I haven't asked him about it, but he enjoyed the less than fishbowl experience.
There you go.
That you have in Dallas versus if you're in New York or Philadelphia or Boston. You know, obviously two of those cities he's been to, or if you went to the Lakers. You know, that's in Dallas, that's reserved for the Cowboys. It's not reserved for the Mavericks. And I think, you know, to the level of anonymity that a player of his ilk can have, he can find it here. And I think that is something that he may very well consider before, you know, it's all said and done. It's one factor. Let's put it this way. It's not the deciding factor.
Chuck, everyone knows what they've read about him or maybe seen about him, because if they've never been around him, you've been around the NBA, you've done Mavericks games for a long, long time, and have seen him and covered games he played in. Was he different than perhaps you thought, or did you ever have that chance to really experience that?
Well, it's always different when you're watching somebody every night as opposed to watching, in the case of Kyrie, since he played his entire career in the East, you know, you'd see him maybe twice a year. You know, sometimes if you're seeing teams like Memphis or Houston or New Orleans, you're seeing players 4 times a year. You get a lot better feel for them. But with you know, Kyrie has had some monster games against the Mavericks in the past, so you know, I've certainly seen him go off. And clearly, you know, if you're enough of an NBA fan, you know what he did in Cleveland when they won the championship, and you know, he was part of some very good teams in Boston too. So, but the thing is, when you're watching him every day, the offensive wizardry is just off the charts. How does a guy that small create that much space for himself to do the things that he does against much bigger people around the rim, and do it as efficiently as he does it? That's the thing that's amazing. I mean, you look, Kyrie shot over 50% with the Mavericks. You know, he shot nearly 40% from three. And you know, it's not all away from the basket. In fact, a lot of his game is the mid-range game that a lot of people don't like, but he's really good at it. And so you let him do that type of stuff. But his ability to finish is absolutely spectacular. And that's the best word I can describe. But there is another end of the floor to play, and he is small, and they do offenses take advantage of the fact that he is small and winds up getting switched on to people that he may not be able to guard as well. And that's the biggest issue for the Mavericks going forward. And I think, you know, Nico said it at the news conference today, we got to be a better defensive team. We got to be able to rebound the ball better. I mean, the numbers just scream at you that, and you didn't even need the numbers. Your eyes could tell you that too. So, you know, how they're going to achieve all that, I don't know. But, you know, I think in the end, everything that the Mavericks are saying is that they want Kyrie to be a part of the solution and that he's not a part of the problem.
Do you feel like, I mean, obviously perception is not reality all the time, but from the frustrating press conference that Jason Kidd had when they, you know, kind of had to, you know, accept the fate of what was going on around them for getting in the playoff in tournament to now, that the front office coaching's like everybody's in a good place about the offseason moving forward?
Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, I haven't talked to them to that extent, and you know, it's my opinion that I think that they they ultimately feel like they've got two building blocks. I think they're working under the assumption that they're going to be able to get Kyrie signed. But again, are they going to be able to do that? I don't know. I mean, Kyrie's had enough flighty moments in his career that I don't know that you really want to put anything in pen when it comes to him.
Yep.
But I mean, they know that there's work to do to get them back to where they were last year, and not even just as a Western Conference Finals team, but just as a team that is going to win 50 games and is going to compete night in and night out. Now, again, this team competed. It's not like this team was horrific. I mean, every game was a close game. I mean, all but three of their games post All-Star break were, by NBA definition, close games, plus or minus 5 points, plus or minus 5 minutes to play. But ultimately, when you're 18-18 in games decided by 5 points or fewer, and 8-12 in games decided by 3 or fewer, you haven't done your part late in the game. And it's not even so much what you have failed to do offensively as much as it can be what you have not done defensively. And look, the defining moment for me for the Mavericks this year came on February 11th in Sacramento. They're playing the second of a back-to-back with the Kings. They'd beaten Sacramento the first night, and that was Kyrie's second game. And this was the first game that Luka and Kyrie had played together. Mavericks had a 2-point lead in the final minute, and they, in a high-scoring game, they got the defense that they needed. They got the initial miss from Sacramento, but they didn't get the rebound. And Domantas Sabonis got the rebound, put it back in, and the game wound up going to overtime, and then De'Aaron Fox went nuts in overtime, and the Mavericks lost that game. Had the Mavericks won that game, they would have been third in the West. And here we are now. And they were never, ever the same after that.
So I know you love men's basketball. You love all sports, but men's basketball, you've done games for the NCAA tournament. You saw the L.J. Cryer news. He ends up in Houston for Kelvin Sampson. You had a reaction to that. And then I saw today on the Walter Clayton commitment to Florida, which, of course, you're a Florida alum, over his coach who he played for at Iona and Rick Pitino at St. John's.
Oh, the Clayton thing is stunning to me. I mean, given what Iona did last year and what Rick is going to be able to do at St. John's, even if the facilities at St. John's aren't great right now, what Rick is going to be able to do there is remarkable. He's a Hall of Famer. He's one of the great coaches of all time, and he's fantastic with guards. He's very hard to play for now. I will say that. I mean, look, he is incredibly demanding. But Clayton obviously showed himself to be a high major player. Playing for Rick. And given how Florida finished last year and the mess that they were offensively, I'm stunned. I'm absolutely stunned that Clayton made the move. Now, he's a Florida native, so I think there was some desire to kind of return home. But, I mean, if you're telling me that Rick Pitino is going to coach me and how many people he's put in the pros and the success that he's had in college, and now going to be playing at an even higher level, in the Big East, which pretty good league, I think we can all agree on, or go to Florida where the program really is in flux right now, and there are all kinds of questions about is Todd Golden really ready for this, and that he chose that. And it's not a 16-1 upset, but it's pretty damn close.
Chuck, do you think that could have anything to do with the Florida Victorious, the collective of the collectives trying to fix that mess that was there in Gainesville?
I mean, it could very well be, and that's a great point, Paul. I don't, when I look at these things, I usually just look at them from a pure playing standpoint and sports standpoint, but there's obviously more involved here, and I don't doubt that there's probably a lot there, and probably something that's far more established than what St. John's has, and that maybe that could very well be the ultimate factor here. But and even going back to the Cryer thing, I think, and obviously, look, Scott Drew always has guards, and he'll have guards next year too. But I'm sure he would have preferred to have a proven scorer on his team, a guy that he knows is going to get buckets for him, as opposed to kind of hoping that you have people step up into that role. And he's going to be great in Houston. I mean, he's now. I will say this. I think he played hard all the time for Scott Drew. I think Kelvin takes it to a different level, especially on the defensive end of the floor. And LJ's he better get ready for getting barked at.
Yeah,
because he's going to get barked at.
No question about it. All right, last thing. The Masters wrapped up, of course, late Sunday. Rahm catches Koepka, ends up winning fairly comfortably. Mickelson made a run. Koepka, of course, was brilliant for 3+ rounds. But your thoughts, the roars, and just and I know you had a game, but the roars and the atmosphere at Augusta National, and your thoughts about all the storylines.
Well, again, I didn't see much of the final round because I was working. I watched the last 4 holes, and by then it seemed like the tournament was pretty well over. So it wasn't, the craziness that you can get at Augusta on Sunday, from what I could tell. But look, I mean, Live versus the Tour is going to be a storyline, whether anybody really likes it or not. The comparison of those players playing on different tours. And in the end, it's not a bad thing, right? And especially with the performance of Koepka and Mickelson and Patrick Reed, they're all hanging in there in the top 5 or 6, and it just shows. People were saying that Liv doesn't have players and they're over the hill, or they're just cashing in, playing for the cash and they don't care. I mean, there's nothing that could be further from the truth. And at the same time, obviously the tour has some great young players, and John Rahm is still young, and he is at the top of the world right now. And there are just a bunch of other players that, whether it's Jordan Spieth or Scotty Scheffler or Sam Burns, I mean, any of those guys, Max Homa, who didn't play particularly well this week. I mean, they're all more than capable. The game itself is in great shape, and if nothing else, what it does, as much as we want to see these guys play against each other every week, it does make those 4 majors monstrous. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, even more must-watch television than we normally would, just because it's that the whole notion of supply and demand, and the scarcity of the times that these guys are going to get together. At some point, if Liv really is able to establish itself, wouldn't it be cool to see a PGA versus Liv match? That type of thing. Let alone anything that you see at the Ryder Cup or the President's Cup or anything like that.
Chuck, thank you as always, buddy. Appreciate your time. Great stuff as always. Chuck Cooperstein,
Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Voice of the Mavericks with us.